Hey,
All
everyone,
right.
welcome to the David Paul Seymour Show, and I am ecstatic to have Mr. Adam Burke joining us this week. And Adam, thanks for coming on, man. I don't know how you feel about it if somebody were to call you a living legend, but I feel like that's kind of where you're kind of headed, dude. And so thanks for taking the time out and coming on.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
So you're up in is it Portland, or at least that area?
Yep. 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 Northeast Portland.
Yeah. So how's the weather on the Saturday morning there?
Well, we just had sort of an unusual early heat wave last week, and then that broke in the early morning hours with a very rare but super intense thunderstorm. So it was an eventful couple of days, really.
Yeah. It's that sounds like that could be good, but also I don't know, man. I kind of like something weird, but I guess I kind of like thunderstorms and stuff like that, man.
Oh yeah. It was crazy. It was just like continuous pink lightning. It was something. And we just don't get them here very often. So it was like, woke me up out of a dead sleep, thought something was wrong.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if you're not used to that, then that could be kind of surprising, Um yeah, so I mean, geez, where do I even start? I mean, like you said, we're kind of share the same foothold in the same sort of industry, or music community, and all that that's
Hmm.
around us right now. And I know you've contributed artwork to the movie we're doing for the Planet of Doom, and just everybody knows and loves your work. And I'm just really excited to get on here and just chat about, like, nerd out on art, and talk about anything, whatever rabbit holes we go down. So obviously the
Yeah.
logical starting point would be your art. So give us some of your background, because I know really nothing about you, and this is the first time we've actually chatted in person. Hopefully not the last time, but this is the first time. So walk us through your background, a young Adam Burke. Like how did that even, how did you get started in art?
Um, yeah, I was a kid who would draw as a pastime as a kid. If I was bored, that was just kind of the thing I would take up. So that's that's been going my whole life. Um, up until like high school, I remember kind of, you start thinking about, oh, gee, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And uh, if you had asked me what I would like to do, it probably would have been an artist at that point. But most of the adults in my life were like, well, that's not really a job. So I started trying to. I went to architecture school, thinking like, oh, okay, I get to draw for a living, and that'll be it'll keep a roof over my head.
You got to be kidding.
Um,
I got to just stop you, because I'm just like kind of freaking out, because I literally had the same exact story. Literally, like I went to college for architecture. I didn't get my license, but because, long story there, I had to stop halfway into it. But I've worked as a draftsman, and essentially taken on the role as an architect later on. And I did that for over 20 years of my life. And I
oh
really,
wow, yeah.
went from that to this as a full time.
Uh-huh.
That's nuts, man. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, it gives you some good foundational stuff. Just the drafting skills really do come into play.
Mhm. What,
And because you learn to letter, you people can still read your writing, I'm assuming.
you write everything in all caps like I do? I don't know if you do it.
It's sort of like a weird modified architectural lettering, kind of a sloppy one.
That's funny, man. Yeah, my dad did it. My dad was an engineer and a draftsman, and electrical.
Hmm.
I'd see him doing it even before I went to school for, like, drafting first and then architecture second. I just would do everything lettered that way, and
Hmm.
still do. It's just like I can't even help it. I can't write in cursive or anything really well. Brain. But yeah, it's funny, man. My parents told me the same thing. They're like, Art is not a job, you know. I mean, exactly the same conversation. You need to do something practical, and I just always had I don't know about you, but I had an interest in architecture, and I still think it's like the highest form of art, you know.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, but anyway, I didn't bring you on here to talk about me, so it's just
No, that's cool. You know, somewhere in there I started playing music, and that actually was kind of, I guess, the thing that probably put me on this path, because I dropped out of school. I had switched to an art major. I was doing sculpture, trying to do like conceptual art and more modern art. You know, really stumbling around, not knowing what the heck I was doing. But music was, you know, an absolute clear path for me. So, you know, I had a band in my little college town in North Idaho, and we all dropped out and moved to Portland and started playing music and got whatever random jobs we could have. And I think, you know, the art and architecture background gave me, I had a few graphic design jobs and like technical illustrating jobs in there. Then at some point, my father asked me if I wanted to, you know, sort of like phase into taking over his affordable housing development company. And I think I had my daughter, you know, I was married, had a daughter by then. And I thought, well, that seems like a pretty, you know, clear path toward financial security, and, you know, a nice thing to carry on my dad's legacy. And we'd kind of talked about like, maybe we could, you know, kind of bring in some of my interest, you know, because I was super into like affordable modern architecture at that point. You know, maybe I could bring that into affordable housing. So that was kind of like, I did that for probably 6 years with him, which was, you know, that was a good amount of time to learn that I did not want to be a housing developer. And, you know, talk with banks and
oh yeah,
you know, municipal housing folks, and there's just a ton of regulation around that stuff. I mean, you know, I believe in the cause of affordable housing, but it just wasn't the career for me. So quit that, and being a pretty avid gardener, I started up a landscaping business, and did that for a while. But that, you know, my sort of aging body and you know, doing like one-man ridiculous projects, I started making art for my own bands at that point. And that just slowly started to snowball. That was probably in 2011 when it, you know, I think I had done my old band Fellwoods. I did an album cover for that, and it was kind of my first attempt at like, you know, fantasy art. It had this like mysterious lady hanging out with some animals looking at a castle in the distance. And, you know, just it's sort of cheeseball fantasy imagery, but it really kind of, I don't know, it just, for whatever reason, like trying to figure out how to paint at that point set me on the path. And that just, you know, just kind of snowballed from there.
that's cool, man. I'm a big fan of cheeseball fantasy imagery anyway, so
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a cornerstone of what I do, I think.
Oh yeah, same. So how did you, so those humble beginnings of learning how to paint, that wasn't something you were doing when you were little or a teenager? It sounds like that was much later.
No, I mean, I dabbled in it a few times. Always felt, you know, just I would just fall back on pencil drawing, because that was something, you know, I felt pretty comfortable with. I could be in control of. Painting is, I mean, I would say that strong drawing skills are probably the most important aspect of painting if you're doing realism. But how to handle color, just the, you know, the physical moving the paint around, mixing, that is stuff that I just had to sort of learn from scratch, and it's very intimidating because I mean, your paintings look like shit for a long time,
Oh,
and
I
but
gave up that quest a long time ago.
well, I think it all kind of actually coincided with this real sink or swim moment with me. I was a single parent with two little kids, and the landscaping business was, it was just a hard way to make a living. So I went with an even harder way to make a living, and chose art. But I was so motivated to make it happen just by having to pay rent at the end. It was just like a dire situation every month, that I think that's what made me build my skills, pretty quickly. And then just really like, I mean, that was just my consuming sort of, that was all I wanted to do, was be a better painter. So
Right,
it was a real fire under my ass.
right. Man, that's incredible. Yeah, that amazes me that, like, it wasn't just this kind of slow, like, you'd been just perfecting and honing the skills over your whole life. You just hit this point where you just said, it's time to turn this switch on.
Yeah, I think it just, sort of a late bloomer. I had to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, or at least like let myself do the thing that I wanted to do. So,
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
that's crazy, man. Yeah, because I
yeah.
mean, what's
How'd
that?
you get started doing this crazy business?
Well, like you, I mean, I drew my whole life. I mean, my little story I tell everyone, even when I was a little tiny kid, old enough to hold a pen and draw. My parents would say go out for the night and want to go over to some friend's house and have a couple of drinks or something, and they, take me with instead of hiring a babysitter, and because they knew they could put a pen in my hand and a stack of paper, and I'd sit in the corner for like 3 hours straight, and I wouldn't budge.
Yeah,
I would just be in my own world, you know. Had my little cassette player, and I'd sit in some corner, some room in that, those guys' house, and just draw and listen to music, and I've always been into music, and so much like you, when I was a teenager, we were into skateboarding, and well, not that you said skateboarding, but we were in bands, and we were into skateboarding. We were playing punk rock and metal and stuff like that. And same deal. I mean, I David can draw. Get David to draw our flyers and get David to draw, like everybody was making these cassette tapes they'd record on shitty, boom boxes or whatever, their jams, and
hmm
do everybody's tape covers and flyers, or in our little community, scene, and kind of grew from there. And how do I make this short? So I'm bad at that.
me too.
But I kept doing that, and then like we talked about, when I was graduating high school, and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, that's when I got into the whole drafting thing. Did that for a lot of number of years before I actually went to architecture school and got a drafting degree and all that. And just I don't know, cut to around like 2009, when they had the big economic collapse, and everybody was getting laid off from their job and stuff. And you probably know that, like, any kind of architecture, anything that goes along with it, construction, drafting, whatever, is a real fickle industry when times are rough. And so
Oh yeah, yeah. That I was working in housing at that point, and our projects just
yeah,
came to a screeching halt.
yeah. So I got laid off, and I actually went back to work for a firm a couple years after. Maybe I picked up some illustration work through an agency, doing stuff for like Target and Best Buy and stuff for that couple of year period. And then when I went back to work, well, it just was a shitty situation again, not really tied to the economy, but I got laid off again, me and a lot of other people. And at that
hmm
point, I figured my wife would be like, hey, put your resume together and get back on the street, man. You got, and I've got 3 kids, and two, and my wife was like, I see how unhappy this makes you at this point.
hmm
During that last job with that last firm I worked for, I decided that I wanted to do stuff for bands, and I wanted to do it as a hobby. And so I would dust off the dining room table after dinner, and I'd spend probably 3 or 4 hours just like working on, say, like a shirt design. Then I would pitch it to bands, see if they like it or whatever, and a lot of them started really liking what I was doing. And I was super into the scene we're in, the kind of doom and stoner rock and that kind of stuff was stuff I was listening to. Love those bands, and I was just like they would want a design or something, and just giving them away, here, use it. So happy. And had a couple of them come along and go, oh man, I don't feel right taking this for free. I want you to let us give you a little money. So in the beginning, and then it started being a little money. And then I noticed like, wow, I'm really getting some work, and I got bolder, and the rates went up. And then before I knew it, the thing was that like, I literally had almost doubled our income. Just staying up all night drawing these projects. So when I got laid off again, and I thought my wife was going to send me back out, looking for another job, she goes, I see you're just one step ahead from like diving out a window, and like ending it all or something. You just seem really bummed out that sitting in a cubicle and taking shit from these guys, isn't your thing. And man, you're really doing well with this thing. She's just keep doing that. So I'm like, really? And so I did that, and I've been doing that since, and it's been very rewarding personally, but it's a roof over our head, and it's been great. So I tried to make that short, but I'm did a horrible job of that, I think. But that's my story, I guess. So
yeah, no, I like it. That definitely, there's some echoes of mine as well. I mean, I think you kind of hinted at the personal satisfaction of making a living out of something you love, and supporting your family that way. I hold that so dear. And as someone who really kind of stumbled around with job and career and stuff for years, it became such a precious thing to me that I will do anything and work as hard as I need to keep it, because I could never go back.
Oh, it's gone. That's long gone.
Yeah.
In the industry I left, though, they use so much like 3D modeling stuff now and all these things that I never would, I'm already a dinosaur. I was probably, by the time I was there, it was already inching toward that kind of stuff. And no, man, I could never go back. Yeah, same thing. I mean, I tell everybody all the time, like, I kind of feel like I fought to get here, but I still fight every fucking day to stay,
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, and it's work that is production based too. You don't get paid unless you're creating. So, it's just a constant fire under your ass to produce, which, sometimes I'm sure you have your moments where the to-do list or whatever is kind of overwhelming. And, you look at your friends who have desk jobs where they get built-in time off and all that, and it's like, that's a little enviable, but not in the big picture.
No, it's worth it. But you're right. Yeah, my wife calls it ass on the stool. It's an ass on the stool job. The ass isn't on the stool. There's just everything grinds to a halt.
Yep.
I'm like you. Yeah, man. There's no vacation. Anytime my wife and I go anywhere, it's always this just thing in the pit of my stomach, and
I know.
It's like
you left a faucet on, and it's your bank account.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't feel great. It doesn't allow. I'm not very relaxed when we go somewhere, because the rare times that we feel like we can, because like, I'm not earning, and we are just out here just spending.
Yep.
Because once you leave home, man, everything costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
yeah, I think that is the business owner's blessing and curse right there.
And we don't have employees either, do we?
No, thank goodness. I
know, but we don't have those guys that we can sort of go, hey man.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to Key West for like a week just to, have a good time, God forbid, but like, you guys handle things while I'm gone. There is none of that,
Oh yeah. If I have paid my daughter to help me pack up paintings and prints. It was kind of like a test run for that, because that's the most detestable part of my job for me, is just the shipping. And um, and she did a great job. So I might have an employee here eventually.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's good, man. Yeah, I know that is funny. I imagine anybody like us must have the same likes and dislikes, because I know I love, it puts the biggest smile on my face to see somebody order a print, but like I just want to draw. It's like, oh, but that means I got to stop and pack this and print a label, and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't like.
Yeah. I just choose days that I'm gonna like write off as like a hell day, because I don't really sell many prints, but I sell quite a few of my originals, and those all need just custom packaging and stuff. So it's like a weird physical undertaking where I got to build boxes and create this stuff. And I mean, uh, you know, the whole time I'm like, I can't believe someone's buying this. So I feel very, very fortunate that I'm even doing it. But yeah, from a job standpoint, that's the biggest drag for sure.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, it is good. It's a good feeling, but it's like, oh, do it anyway. So tell me more about how like you chose to sort of like, because you're the guy, like I can, you can see it in your work, and everybody watching this, I know that knows your work, knows what I'm talking about, but like you could paint anything. Like, I mean, you could do like Western landscapes with horses and, like, I guess kind of like normal art or whatever, but like you have, you're like a Roger Dean or somebody who like, you sort of created your own universe in a way. Like anything you paint, it can all be different, but like, I think everybody that just sees an image with nothing attached to it knows it's your work. And like, that's fucking awesome. Number one. Number two is like, how did you arrive at that place? Because like, it's one thing to be a really gifted painter, but it's another thing to have a thumbprint that everyone recognizes, let alone a subject matter style that, while it's like jumping around a lot of different things, probably based on what a client or your mood is, but it's still in that world, like you said, of some sort of fantasy or some sort of like alternate reality or whatever like that. So I mean, like, how did that subject matter get into your brain, and like, how did that all happen?
I mean, you're right that some of that is just sort of determined by doing things on commission. When you see an album cover from me, a lot of times that's someone's ideas filtered through my brain and my, sort of skill. And I would say that I have not purposefully developed a style. And, I really appreciate you saying that there appears to be one, because I feel like that is honestly just my personality coming through, my interests. I'm a nature nerd, and I'm a gardening nerd, and have always just been super into illustration and art and painting, from a fan and a viewer standpoint. So I think it all just kind of gets crammed in there and comes out. And, I think with each painting, I'm sure you have the same feeling, like you're doing your best. So it's this kind of expression of your deepest places, your strongest yearnings sort of expressed. Like, if I make this look stupid, then I look stupid. So you're just working really hard, and I think that ends up being like an expression of your inner stuff, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, I don't know how you feel, but at the rate that it seems like you and I put work out there,
Yeah.
I've definitely done things that I feel were really stupid looking back.
Oh yes, it's, yeah. And there's a, for me, it's one of two things. It's like, this is someone else's idea that I should have interjected a little bit more into. You know, because there are times when I'm working outside my comfort zone as far as what the idea is, but you know, sometimes I treat it like a job. It's like I need to, you know, I don't say no very often. I mean, I have subject matter that I won't do from a sort of, you know, that don't reflect my values or whatever. But as far as you know, giving a client what they want, that's usually my highest goal. So sometimes it ends up that I'm painting something that I think is kind of embarrassing, or I'd say even more rarely when I just can't wrap my head around something. So, and it's usually in hindsight when I, you know, I'll look back at something and be like, oh my God, look at that hand. It's so fucked up looking. So it's, you know, like it's stuff like that where I just like the physical ability isn't there, and that can be embarrassing because you're sort of like working at your maximum ability, and it's never not challenging.
Right.
So
Right.
sometimes there are stinkers.
Yeah, I don't care who you are or what you do. I think there's always, you know, whether it's, you know, me or you or whoever, you know, the butcher cutting meat or whatever. I'm sure everybody has a day where they're like, man, I could just right now, you know what I mean? This is not great, you know, but do you feel like there's anything you've been asked to do that, or let me rephrase it. Are there things that you feel like you're not good at?
Oh yeah, I think we had this discussion when we were working on the Planet of Doom stuff. Architecture is one of those things, especially if you get into sort of complex perspectives. You know, it's one thing to draw it, but to paint it with all the shadow, I mean, to get, you know, each object has to feel dimensional. That stuff it's so very challenging. And, you know, I mean, one of the reasons that I left that world is that I don't want to be technical. I don't want to be, you know, I do a lot of landscapes because it's just a lot of chaos, and there's no standard for what a mountain looks like. You know, there's so many forces that create a mountain that it just looks chaotic and asymmetrical. So yeah, architecture, very challenging. And I would say figure drawing and portraiture are never not challenging. You know,
I get the figure drawing aspect, but I imagine people I bet a lot of people ask you to do their portrait or do a portrait of somebody they know or something like in your style or something. I mean, I imagine they would.
Yeah, I've done a handful of them. And, you know, to me, the thing about portraiture is that unless you are incredible at it, which, I mean, you know, a lot of artists just sort of specialize that. And I think it probably takes years and years and years to hone that. If you get it even a tiny bit wrong, it doesn't look like the person. So that, like, I'll have bands ask me, like, you know, can you paint us in this? And I'm like, and I've done a few of those, but for me, it's always embarrassing because I just don't feel like I've got the chops for that. You know, I could never charge enough to make it worth my time because it's so incredibly time consuming.
Didn't you do one
There are too many constraints.
for a Great Electric Quest or something? That's the one I was thinking of.
Yep. That was, in fact, I think that might have been the one or one of the last ones that made me go, I'm not doing this again. I mean, that was a fun one. And, you know, I hope they're happy with it, but it was super challenging. I mean, there was, you know, one where they were just like, well, that doesn't really look like our band member. And, you know, because they know this person and they're around them all the time. And, you know, that's the real sticking point with portraiture. I mean, it has to look like them. And I'm just not, I don't do it enough. You know, I think you have to kind of specialize in it.
Oh yeah, you're right. Well, just for the record, I thought that one was really cool. And I think that's one of those things where I think that'd be crummy if the band was hassling you really hard about the one guy or any of the guys, because it's like I think there's a point where, like, when you're doing those kind of pieces where it's like you gotta kind of let some of that go, because I thought like you nailed down like the essence of the guys, and that's all that needed it to be. I mean, you know, and they're probably like this fucking big on your paint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna get in there with a fucking magnifying glass, and you know, or I don't know, but like I thought it was really cool, and but
Thanks.
I could definitely.
They were cool. They weren't hassling me by any means. It was mostly I'm sure you have this. I have, when I get pushback or feedback from a client that is like, I try to let it just, rest on my judgment of like, this is reasonable feedback and this is unreasonable feedback. And that was totally reasonable feedback.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know that I've ever really had another conversation, I'm gonna be honest with you, with another artist who sort of does kind of like what we do, for who we do, the way we do, as like a client-based thing. So it's interesting stuff. But yeah, no, I feel the same way. It's like a lot of times, and I bet you've gotten those clients who are like, it almost seems like you're never going to make them happy no matter what. And where you just like, how can I back out of this room with mental fucking loss and, of life and limb, I feel like,
yeah.
I'm beset.
Why did I say yes to this?
Well, sometimes you don't know until you get to working with those guys that like, wow, you're not my favorite maybe person, but shit, what was I going to say about that? Oh yeah. So, like for me, sometimes it's easiest putting some white out on a piece of paper or erasing a pencil sketch, or, I do all my color in the computer, the magic box, as I call it, but because everything else is analog, except for the stuff. But there's tons of points along the way where I can make easy edits too. If a client goes, that's not coming out just like I want it to, or I don't know how picky your guys get or you let them get, but like I thought about you one time and I was thinking, like, looking at one of your people, I'm like, what if like he's 3/4 into this thing and somebody goes, can you make that more green or purple, bro? What I get, it's like, do you realize like how this works, right? Like what I'm doing, like I'm applying paint, and like this has all been carefully mapped out for like color theory, and what I mean, like how do you deal with that? Now this is getting nerdy. Probably everybody watching this probably doesn't care that much, but I do. But
yeah, I would actually say that you're getting into like the like brass tacks of composition. But this is, I never get to talk to other people about this, so this is like exactly what I want to talk to someone who knows. So I have, over the years, over much hand wringing, I've really developed a strong upfront kind of like I try to manage expectations up front, where I tell my prospective clients, give me your ideas. We'll kind of talk them through, and then I'll create a sketch. And the sketch is going to, I work pretty hard to make the sketch, really give them the feel for the composition and for what this thing's going to look like. And it's just a pencil sketch. Sometimes I'll do like some Photoshop shading so I can, kind of work with dark and light. But and I tell them, like, this is where the editing happens. Like, make your, if you want to move a guy from the left panel to the right panel, or if you want to, maybe we can throw in another horse or two, or, these things that if I'm well into a painting and this happens, exactly, like a painting is built like, there's a zillion things that go into it. It's a lot of layering up. but I do give people the opportunity to do some edits, even once I've started painting. I give them progress shots. I just try to discourage them from doing major compositional changes. Sometimes with a color, like you're saying, I can, I kind of work. The cool thing about paint is that you can do anything with it. So sometimes they're very thin washes, and sometimes it's laid on real thick. So I can change the tint of things with just a thin wash. And, there's part of me that'll be like, well, I just spent, many hours creating this sort of color palette, and that can be annoying. But yeah, a major edit when I'm well into the painting is, I think you have to be another artist to understand sort of what you're asking there, because I just have to repaint it. There's no, and if you're moving, say there's a man standing on a mountain with a big sky behind him and you're going to move him, I got to paint the section of mountain, the section of sky, and then repaint the guy. It's
Can't imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried to head it off early on, but there are times, and there are times when I agree with the changes, and I'll do the occasional, oh, can you throw another tree in kind of stuff. But sometimes people are really pushing the, I've already given you a bid for this job, and now you're basically asking for more. And that I think is just, sort of a poor understanding of the collaboration.
We've probably both discovered, and I know probably 80% of the people who are watching this at least are in bands or who know, work, maybe even have worked with us before. So I don't mean this as a knock, because I'm sure that they'd be the first to say, yep, he's right. But, bands are in bands because they're maybe not always the most business savvy guys, or they don't get all that, kind of stuff. And like that's fine. God love them. That's why they're in bands and they're creating entertainment, because they're not meant to run companies or like, just, do the books and keep up with all these kind of things. And, me and you probably have to do, or whatever, and get it. But it's a lot of fun, man. I've really, as working with bands being the bread and butter client for me anyway, like I really enjoy working with them, because they're, at the end of the day, they're far more rewarding in so many ways than if I would have went down the road to illustrate for like the days going back to doing the stuff for Target and Best Buy and that kind of thing. It's obviously a different mindset, but it's a whole different kind of, like, I think there really is more love and appreciation for like what you and I do than there would be from, some pencil neck dude, sitting in his office,
Oh yeah,
art director or whatever,
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
Yeah. And man, they can come up with some crazy shit to throw you.
That is a source of, I agree. I mean, I've been playing music since I was probably 20, and it's been, an absolute central part of my life. I've played with every manner of, like, band moron or band genius that you can imagine. So I definitely understand a lot of the different dynamics. But it's also, I think it's my community. Most of my friends are musicians. It's the world I'm in. And I think that is by choice. It's, because these people are the people I want to be around. But yeah, there are some wacky ideas, and sometimes just ideas that come from a place of not understanding, what I do or whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. And I've had that spillover into like dealing with art directors, and sometimes like the bigger labels will have your more pencil pusher types. I've done a couple projects with, I almost said it out loud, but let's just say one of the biggest record companies out there, one of the biggest entertainment companies out there. And I have sworn to never work with them again twice now, because once you start getting into their art directors, they're just the worst. And getting paid is incredible.
Isn't that funny, man? Like, I've waited on checks for 2 months, 3 months from some company to pay me for something. And meanwhile, you know, Fred, Jim, and Tim over here basically just getting out of the garage, you know,
Yep.
an album cover, a t-shirt, and within 2 hours of completing it and showing them a proof, they're like, money's in my account. You know what I mean?
Yep. And for them, that is a lot more money than it is for the big labels. I have the same experience. The independent bands, the underground dudes are just across the board easier to deal with and more of a joy.
Yeah, and I don't know what other, like, say, music communities are like, say, if we'd have got into some other different type of you know, genres or communities or whatever, but like, man, these are just the nicest fucking dudes on the planet. I swear to God. Like, you know, I don't know how, you know, I'm sure you go to, you know, you go hang out and go to a lot of shows and go to a lot of maybe music festivals or something and whatever. And it's like, it is the most welcoming community. And like, I'm just so thankful for that, you know, that I can be a part of that world with them in some small way and, like, you know, contribute to it and have made friends in it and just feel that love. There really is love, you know, whether you're like us who are like actively participating in it or not, or you're just a fan. I mean, there's always love to everybody and everybody's kind of on the same level, I think. And there really aren't a whole lot of like, well, I'm bigger than you and I'm better than you. And, you know, like I you know, view myself that way and you should view me that way too. And like, I've never met one guy like that, like, ever, you know?
Yeah, I think the heavy music world doesn't tolerate big egos like that. I mean, there are plenty of big egos out there, but I think they're far outweighed by, I think there's just a mentality of humbleness and solidarity. I mean, I mean, that's why I got into punk rock as a kid. I mean, it was accepting. It was, you know, I came from a crazy, stifling religious background, and these people were super open-minded. They didn't put people down just for, you know, what they looked like or whatever. I mean, yeah, I agree. Underground music is full of the best people.
It is. So you are in a band, or is Pushy still the band you're in now?
Mm-hmm.
So how's that going and how'd that get started? We could talk about that a little bit if you want to.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Let's see. You know, probably since about, well, for years and years and years, I want to do sort of like a heavy 70s thing, you know, just really nasty riffs. You know, just, I mean, mostly from listening to Deep Purple and stuff, you know, like gnarly ass bands that in my mind, they sort of like rock and roll peaked at that point in history. And, you know, I feel like I've been sort of chasing that idea ever since. And, you know, kind of gave that the first try with my band Fell Woods, and absolutely loved that band. And, you know, it was a lot of fun, but it was kind of, you know, meeting up with the drummer of what's now Pushy that, you know, we both just had this idea of doing something kind of nasty and funky. Like Fell Woods was a little more proggy and metally, but we just wanted like dirty rock and roll. Yeah. So like my buddy Ron is the lead guitarist, and I've known him for years and years, and he's a masterful guitar player who, you know, is just devoted to, you know, Billy Gibbons and Peter Green and these masters from the era. So the three of us started it, and you know, I just like really got off to a great start. It was like I think we all came from like nasty punk backgrounds, and that kind of filtered with this love of, yeah. And the funny thing too, we had this idea of like, there were so many heavy bands at the time, like how can we be different than that? And we were like, what if we make it smoother? What if we make it like more subtle? So, you know, instead of just constant heavy riffs, we try to put a lot of space in the songs, you know, have quiet moments. And that just makes the heavy moments that much heavier, I think.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's just kind of, I don't know, the band, like our bass player Neil joined us, and he's a goddamn phenom. So, yeah, I don't know. These are the most skilled musicians I've ever played with. It's really a, you know, it's a band that I couldn't ask for better dudes to play with. So just been doing that since 2013, 2013.
You've been doing that?
Yeah.
I had no idea that band's been around that long.
we move very slowly in our, I mean, we're all older and busy with the rest of our lives, so
nothing wrong with that, man. It's nice to have that little outlet, you know. And I don't use it down just calling that an outlet, but you know what I mean. Like I'm just assuming you guys aren't like plotting world tours and. You know,
there are some band members that would like and be able to do that. I mean, we'd all like to do that, but yeah, it's you know, we've got a couple dads in the band, and that right there makes that stuff pretty difficult. But we tend to get a few kind of little mini tours in every year, and you know, mostly West Coast, but it's enough to kind of keep the momentum going.
It'd be cool if you guys come play out here in Minneapolis sometime. Maybe do a little Midwest run, Chicago, Minneapolis, and you know, Detroit or something like that.
Yeah, we're friends with those guys in out of Ohio, out of Columbus. You know that band?
Oh, I fucking love it.
Oh, well, we keep talking about like flying out there and just doing a run with them.
Yeah, that would be a killer little mini tour bill right there, dude.
Yeah.
Pushing for that.
Okay.
I love that, man. You guys are a really cool band too. I mean, I didn't mean to make it sound like that, but like, yeah, no, I get kind of man wet when I talk about I really like that fucking band.
Yeah, they're as good as it gets. It's incredible musicians.
Yeah, they kind of push all my buttons. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even ask you. What do you? Cause are you the rhythm guitarist then?
Yep. Yeah, I play maybe 2 leads out of 25 songs. So I'm a pretty middling guitar player, but Ron is he's incredible. So he generally does the tricky stuff and the beautiful stuff, and I just sing.
Yeah, well, it's a cool unit, man. I dig it, and it's
Thanks.
neat. I like seeing people like that who damn, what's the word I was looking for? Jeez. Oh, that's shitty. Renaissance. You're like a Renaissance. I like that. You're a man of the earth, an artist. An alchemist, a musician. I gave up playing. I was a bass player, and I gave up playing. I still have a couple of basses here, but now it's like my daughters play a lot.
Oh yeah.
Like cool, just like I love to hear them down in the basement playing and on all the stuff. And they actually went to a performing arts school, and so one of them does drums and the other one does bass. They're still trying to get a band together. You know what I mean? They're just teenagers, but it's so great to hear them play. But I don't know where you find the time, man. I just don't have the fucking. My wife's like, I'll be fuck if you're gonna fucking start a band. There's way too much shit that needs fixing around here, and you got that kind of time, you know what I mean? You need to be fixing doors and all right, got it. So
yeah. Well, it is funny. One of the strange kind of upsides of all this pandemic stuff has been you know, all these gazillions of things I'm always trying to do have been put on halt. So I have a little bit of space in my life, which is a feeling I haven't had for forever. I mean, we've got a new little guy. We've got a 1-year-old, and like I feel less busy now with 2 teenagers and a 1-year-old than like last year was just, oh, like every second of my existence was, you know, someone asking me for something. And you know, it's weird because I don't want playing in a band to feel like that, but having this sort of forced break has been a real blessing, I think, for all of us. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Everybody I've talked to on the show that I've talked to literally have echoed that same statement. Like, I actually think this was good for everybody. Like everybody,
yeah.
and even the bands, as much as they hate not being out on the road or getting, even being able to get together to practice or write or record or whatever, they're like, I needed a fucking break, and I didn't even know it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like the things that needed tending to in my life that I didn't see, and now I see it, and I'm working on it, and it's like, I don't know, man. So I don't know. Everything's got a silver lining, I guess, right? So
Yep. I hope we hang on to some of those lessons instead of everyone going nuts to butts again.
Yeah, we'll see, I guess, right?
Mm.
So you are a nature guy, you say, and I know that about you just from following you on social media and stuff, and you always got great you know, posts about, you know, just being out and finding stuff. And I know, like, you and my best friend here in Minneapolis, he I think you guys like what is it, agates? They're called. He's just, yeah, he's super into that. And you know, his background, he's mostly Native American, and he comes from the Badlands of South Dakota. And
Oh wow,
he goes,
dinosaur.
yeah, he finds some crazy stuff. But like, I'd love for the two of you guys to meet at some point, man. I think you guys, I'd be like that great like guy just behind you too, like kind of following, like, oh, that's cool. What do you guys talk about? What's that? Cool. But like, yeah, you guys have hit it off in that way, you know. But yeah, he's taken me out there, and man, it was just great. I mean, and then, you know, we're fortunate enough where we live right here. I mean, I'm literally looking out this window, and like, it's a big thing with Minnesotans is they get these cabins up north, and that's the thing that they kind of leave the city and they go up north, you know, both in the winter and the summer, and they have all this nature around them. You get away from the city a little bit, but we live in a spot where like we don't have to do that. Like it's like our house and our cabin. Like
Oh man.
my whole backyard isn't even like lawn. It's just literally like there's a deck hanging way out over. It just drops into a ravine, and we got like coyotes and owls, and owls will come fly right up into the tree, you know,
Oh man.
our house, and deer walk all around here. They're completely unafraid, unencumbered by, you know, because no one's allowed to mess with them. So it's like a really cool vibe. Like they're very at peace, and all the animals, and you know, my wife's got her tomatoes and everything growing out here, so it's like it's pretty chill too. So you know, I love that whole kind of thing, but I love the whole agate thing because my I'm jumping all over the place, but like because I was so excited. I think we had found some, and I think I had sent you a photo of them. This was years ago. I think it was probably 3 years ago, maybe, or something like that. Look, man, I got some of these, you know. I'm like a little kid, man. Anybody who knows me knows I'm like I'm kind of a weird like little kid. Get like when I go like, hey, Adam Burke likes these. I'm gonna send a picture to Adam Burke. My wife's like, don't bug him. Like, what does he care? You got a handful of these things. I'm like, no, he likes.
Oh, yeah, I want to see pictures of agates. I mean, if I'm scrolling through Instagram, I'm looking at pictures of agates. Agates and paintings and old trucks. That's Instagram for me.
Jesus, man, it's a shame we don't live closer. I think me and you had hit it off really well. I love old trucks too. I own a new truck, but I'm always going to car shows with my good friend, and we always are looking at, you know, he's looking at all the old cars, and I'm seeking out all the old trucks, and but yeah, man, I'd love to. My granddad had a '69 F100, and that's what I keep looking at. Like I want to find one of these days. But not a good tinkerer, so I need to find one that's like ready to roll and looks nice. You know what I mean? But boy, that's
Oh yeah.
a lot of money. If you're not doing them yourself, you know, then if you're buying them and they already look good, that's a lot of money. But,
Yeah. No, I feel you there. I in another life I'm a car guy, but not in this life. Just an appreciator.
yeah, for sure. Well, shit, man. What you got cooking right now before we wrap up? Anything share with us that anything fascinating going on we didn't talk about?
Well, I'm filling in the pool in my backyard, so that's dominating much of my free time right now. Just wheelbarrowing incredible amounts of soil into my backyard so that I can have a backyard. And it makes no sense to have a swimming pool in Northwest Oregon. So I gave it a year, and we're like, no, we're not pool people. So gonna turn it into an orchard and a garden, and play area for the kiddos.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, do it. You know, reclaim that earth.
Yep.
Yeah, at first you said you were filling it in. I figured like you just had a hose running out back or something like that. You were filling it in. You're returning it back to the earth. I get it.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah. Other than that, got pretty good handful of projects work wise that are I'm right in the middle of making I have a buddy who's got a soap company, so I'm making little native bird paintings for his soap labels. That one has been a nice little change of pace from epic death metal album covers. But I still have a lot of those that are on the docket.
good to hear, man. Good to hear. I saw the bird things on your Instagram, I think. Yeah, those are really cool, man. That's probably get to sit and knock out something that's I don't want to say more simple, but it looks like that could be like a fun diversion from doing this big, like you said, this big epic, space battle or something for veterans.
Yeah, from a mental weight standpoint, the big epic space battle is days of preparation and toil, and those birds are just a couple hours. So yeah, it's nice to have sort of. And I've been drawing nature stuff my whole life, so it's sort of a comfort zone thing too, I think.
Yeah. Are you one of these guys that like grab a sketchbook and go out when you go for a hike or go for a walk and sketch all the stuff you see? Or
I always mean to be one of those guys, and I was a lot more when I was younger, but I feel like if there's a way that I can find to slow my work output down a bit, I will do more of that sort of thing. But currently, because I've turned my hobby into my career, that that's where I get all my drawing done.
That's hilarious. I was just curious because like I always wanted to be that guy too, man. Like the first thing I did when I moved up here to go to architecture school, the first thing I swear I did was like I stopped in the shop and I bought this like blank sketchbook and a pencil, and I'm like, every time I sit at a coffee shop and have a coffee, I'm going to draw the building across the street, or I always like wanted to go like when I go on hikes with my son, I'm gonna start bringing the sketchbook with me, and like I've got 20 sketchbooks, and I think maybe they have like 2 pages done in each one.
Yeah.
I've tried to be that guy too, and like I'm just not. Like I actually don't even think about it. Then I get back home and I go, "Fuck!" I gotta sketch this cool tree I see all the time when we go for a hike, or whatever. And like, yeah, I don't do it. In architecture school, the drawing, the building thing, I think that happened once or twice, and I go, "Oh shit, man! I really don't want to do like that."
It's too much work.
Yeah, this isn't enjoyable to me, Funny. Man, it was great talking to you. I don't want to tie up your whole Saturday, and to be honest, we got people coming over. My wife's going to kill me if I don't start helping her clean house. So I better get going on that. And it was a real treat to meet you, man. I mean, like I said, I know we've done the movie stuff. We kind of talked, but we've never talked in person or or anything like that, or you're officially met. So it was I really enjoyed talking to you, and I really appreciate you doing it. I knew it wasn't really your cup of tea to think, and you're a little hesitant about it. So I appreciate you doing it, man. I think I'm so glad you did, because it was a real treat.
Mostly, I just don't want to see myself on camera, but
Oh,
talking to another person who does what I do, and I admire your work. It's a real treat. So
I really do appreciate it. I really do appreciate that coming from you, man. Because I mean what I said at the top, man. I really think you're going to be one of those guys who go down in the books at the kids like 30 years from now will be talking about your work, like like we talk about Roger Dean or Frazetta or somebody like that. I really do, and I think that's awesome, man. And
well, I think you're right there too, David. I mean,
I don't know about that. I just, but I do appreciate you're clearly an awesome human being with a great like aura, to have that kind of thing for you. So it's deserved. So I appreciate you coming on. And
thank you.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, keep up the good work, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good one, Dave.
Have a good rest of your weekend, buddy. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.